Hey guys, welcome back to Brewing's channel. For those of you that don't know who we are, we do online tutorials, product reviews, and an online chat feature to help you through your Brewing 911s. Today's video, we're going to dive in depth into the theory of mashing, fermentability control, temperature, and everything that you really wanted to know but wasn't necessarily covered in a basic video. We make it very simple to understand, and if you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of it, this is going to be the video for you. Let's check it out. Here's the general idea when we talk about mashing. There's some specific rules and guidelines that really are your guideposts to put you down the right path when you're doing a mash. This tutorial, we're not doing recipe design. When you're first starting out, I recommend you take a recipe that you've brewed before, maybe it's extract, and you convert it to all grain, or you take an existing all grain recipe that is relatively simple, no crazy grains or anything, and you really dial in your process. That's going to be very important. Once you get comfortable with your equipment, get comfortable with how it responds to certain things, then you can start to explore and kind of have fun. When you're mashing, there's a specific temperature range that you want to keep your grain. The range is really between 149 to 162. Now those are the extreme ends of the spectrum. If you're doing a mash and you're somewhere within those ranges, within that range, your starches will convert to sugar. You will have something that is fermentable. You will have made wort. The more control you have, the more precise you can be, the better off you are. Now within that range, if you're controlling fermentability, something to keep in mind. If your temperatures are on the warmer side, so at the higher end of that spectrum, your wort will be less fermentable. What does that mean in the finished beer? It means you're gonna have a maltier, sweeter finish. When is that appropriate? Well, if you're doing a very, very hoppy IPA, you probably want it to be a little less fermentable, so there's a little bit of a sweetness backbone to counteract those heavy hops you're putting in there. It's a nice balance. On the other end, if you go to the cooler end of that spectrum, your wort will be more fermentable, so you end up with a drier beer. So dry stouts are very good for that. Anything that doesn't have a lot of hops that you need to balance will lend itself to more of a drier style. So you can really control fermentability from there. For someone that's just starting out, I don't recommend the extreme ranges. Just shoot for like a 152. It's a good medium range that you can get into. It kind of mirrors a lot of what the extract you've already been using is in the range of, and it will make very, very good beer. Once you get the process down, then you can tweak and turn those dials and knobs and really calibrate that recipe. Just start at 152 for the sake of ease. Now let's talk about strike temperature. So strike temperature is the temperature you're gonna heat your water to get you to your target mash temperature of the 152. In order to do that, you need your water to be hotter than your target. And the reason that is because you're taking this hotter water, you're mixing it with cooler temperature grain, and they should equalize to hit that temperature. Now, there's calculators that will help to get you really spot on and hit those temperatures, because if you have a lot of grain or it's abnormally cold, that will throw off the direction that your temperature is going. As a general rule, keep it easy, keep it simple. If your grain's at room temperature and 70 degrees and you're not doing a really, really massive big beer or a really, really light beer, 10 to 15 degrees is really gonna be your target. 10 to 15 degrees over your mash temperature for the water. And when you mix that with the grain, when you dough in, that will equalize at your target. And if you're a couple of degrees over or under, it is fine. It will still make delicious beer. Just have fun with it. Speaking of doughing in, when you are mixing your grain and water together, there's two ways to do it. You can have your grain in your mash tun and you can pour your water into it. The benefit of doing that is there's less temperature shock on the enzymes that are in the grain. It's a minimal difference and really not worth it in my opinion. The better way to do it is to add the grain to the water. Similar to baking. You always start with your liquid ingredients and then you slowly stir in your dry. This enables the dry ingredients to really get saturated and really soak up that water, and it prevents dough balls that can be dry patches within your mash that no conversion happens. They just sit there because they're dry. One of the things that you really want to keep in mind is, or you have questions on, is how much water am I supposed to use for this mash? There are some good rules and guidelines. Each recipe is going to be a little bit different, especially if you are varying the amount of grains that are in your mash or in your recipe. As a general rule, your target for your mash, you want to do 1.25 to 2 quarts per pound of grain. That is the water to grain ratio, and that gives you a good mix of enough water to make sure that everything's getting hydrated, and not too much water where the enzymes are too far apart and they don't get good conversion. So it's a pretty big range there when you think about it. The other thing to keep in mind is because your grain is dry, it's going to soak up some of that water. You're not going to be able to get that water back out. You need to account for that in your water calculations. So anticipate about a half a quart per pound of grain will be sucked up by the grain and lost. You're not going to recover that. So you understand the mash steps for the most part. You've got your water calculated, you know how much you need. The next question is how long does it take? Like, when do I know if I'm done with the mash? Typical rule of thumb is you're mashing for about an hour, and that allows the enzymes to give you a good conversion on the starches into sugars. Now, to be honest, malts have progressed so far over the past 20 years that their enzymatic power, their diastatic power is so great that it will convert things faster than an hour. For a typical grain bill where you don't have a lot of adjuncts, corn, oatmeal, wheat, things that are real kind of gummy and require a little bit more time to break down, you can actually count on like a 30-minute mash. Conversion will complete by then. For me, I always just do an hour mash because it's easy. It's only 30 minutes more, it's not a huge deal, and so we just let it carry all the way through. So the other question becomes is, well, how do you really know if you got good conversion? And for all grain brewers that are first starting out, they may ask themselves like, well, how do I know? Well, there's a couple ways. One, if you taste the mash when you first put it in, just the liquid, and then at the end of the mash you taste it again, you'll notice there is a markedly different flavor, much more malty, much sweeter. And that is the conversion of those starches into sugar. The other way you can do it, which is other than sensory of what you're tasting, you can do what's called an iodine test. Now you don't need to do this every time. Once you become comfortable and trust that it's working, you should be fine without it. This will just give you peace of mind. Basically what you do is you take a dinner plate, a saucer plate, you take a little sample of your wort at the end of the mash, just out of the top, try not to get any grain bits or grain husk. You want it to be as clear as possible. Put the drops on the plate. And then you take some iodophor, the sanitizing solution, or if you have iodine, just use iodine, and you put a couple of drops into that liquid. If you see the liquid stay that iodine color, that brown color, conversion is complete. If you see it turn purple, or you see like purple waves, and it's pretty obvious that it's purple, then that means there are still unconverted starches. Let it run for a little bit longer. There's no harm in that. If you're not wanting a fully fermentable wort, you could certainly take it, pull it, and be done. But it's just a little test to give you some peace of mind, especially for the new all-grain brewers as a quick test. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our video all about the mash. We hope it brought you some value. Please hit that like and subscribe button so we'll continue to bring you some of this wonderful content. All of this wonderful content. Thank you so much again, guys. Don't forget, below we have the entire series linked where we go through every single mash step in detail if you want to learn more. Catch you later, my friends.